29th February 1920, Kafka writes, "He is thirsty and is separated from the spring only by a thicket. But he is divided. One part looks over the hole, sees that he is standing here and the spring is nearby, but a second part notices nothing, has at most an inkling that the first part sees everything. But since he notices nothing, he cannot drink." Now, the two parts that Kafka talks about here, the first part seems to be more rational, seems to have more of a sway and more of a say in terms of his knowledge. Now, in translation, it says, "He is divided, one part looks over the whole." And the translation makes it appear as if there's a certain kind of overseeing that is taking place. Whereas in German, the word that is used is Übersicht. Now, Übersicht in the context does mean to look over the entire situation. But Übersicht as a word also has resonances with overlook. So in the translation, it's not just looks over the whole, but also misses the whole perhaps. That means at first glance, at first blush, it seems as if the first part that Kafka talks about has knowledge about how to quench this desire, this thirst. The object that will quench desire is just across the thicket. So it's a bird's eye view on the situation where this one part sees that he is standing here, he, as in the whole, is standing here, and the spring is nearby. But the second part, in fact, is possibly being overlooked by the first part, because this fundamental division within himself is perhaps something that the first part even cannot really take account of. Because he states very clearly right after this that a second part notices nothing, has at most an inkling that the first part sees everything. Now, this is very interesting because there is a distinct opposition between the fact that the second part notices nothing, but the first part sees everything. And like we discussed, even this everything that the first part sees might not include the fundamental division in the subject that Kafka is talking about here. Now, when we read over here in translation that the second part has at most an inkling, this should give us pause for thought. Now, inkling translates the German word Ahnung. So, for example, in German, one might say keine Ahnung. That means no idea. But Ahnung is not just idea, it can also mean something like a premonition, something like a feeling that something bad or something troubling might happen. So, reading the word inkling has a clue that the first part knows everything, can guess that the first part knows everything, but also fears that the first part can understand everything. Because when desiring, when in the throes of desire, we do have this both this respect and this fear for this rational side to us, which we feel can understand things, has determined that this is what is going to quench my desire. But at the same time, this faith or this fear of the rational side is also there because we don't want to be rational in desire. We don't want to look at everything while ignoring this desire that has started inhabiting us. Because there is no desire where I am a simple one thing as opposed to another thing which I have to get to. It's not a point A to point B construct. Desire is not that, perhaps. And because it is not that kind of construct, because it is not that simple, because desire thrives on a kind of opposition, thrives on a kind of fundamental division, as we also read in Plato's Symposium. Therefore, the second part notices nothing, but at the same time is aware that has an inkling that the first part sees everything, or that at some point the first part might indeed see everything. So this Anu might turn out to be right. There is also this fear, perhaps, that the guess is right, that there is perhaps a way in which desire will end. Desire will end as soon as one reaches the water, as soon as one has water. There is no thirst left. There is no desire left in that sense. So the second part refuses to see it in a certain way, is afraid of seeing it in a certain way, is at the same time cognizant that there is a first part possible, though the first part's existence is not in question here, because Kafka writes very clearly, has an inkling, can guess that the first part sees everything, but he doesn't write that the second part is doubtful about the existence of the first part. Doesn't see that at all. So the second part does understand that there is such a view of desire possible. There is such a view, outsider's view possible. But the outsider's view fails in this entry as in life because the outsider's view fails to take into account the fundamental Spaltung, the fundamental division which goes into making desire what it is.